it's still uncertain in many ways what direction Trump will take in terms of foreign policy, but do you think that a more isolationist, non-interventionist America might bring some benefits for the rest of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly. I mean, Clinton in the Middle East and Clinton in Russia in particular would have been disastrous. I mean, there's no question about getting away from that. But Clinton, for all our kind of hawkishness with Russia and our hawkishness in the Middle East, she is constrained by the bounds of sanity and basic statecraft, so she would maybe be a very hard line, but she would eventually, I think she would be kind of, there would be some brinkmanship kind of sort of deployed and all that, but I think she would be a kind of, ultimately, possibly be a safer pair of hands, but it's very, very hard to say because she was a very dangerous person in foreign policy. I think Trump is in a way it's a classic bully. He won't go to war with Russia. He'll pick his targets more carefully, and I think but I think he will go to war with somebody. He will go to war with some nation or another. It's just something that his policies are going to be very, very hard. They're going to hit America very, very hard, and he'll need a diversion. And I think that you have that kind of, he's stoked up that nativist kind of sort of USA mentality that he has to do something with it, and I'm sure it'll be a war. I'm sure it'll be some kind of pointless daft war over something or other. Possibly the war. Possibly, there's so many kind of options for him, really.
And what you drew on some of the comparisons between what's happened in the US and the UK and indeed across Europe, but what do you think the solution might be given that the political left is in disarray?
Well, I think you have to find ways of empowering people in a sort of, we've lost all the ways that kind of people kind of really, that ordinary people progress, for themselves. We've lost the Labour Party, we've lost trade unions, we've lost kind of all these kind of things, and part of that is to do with deindustrialisation. So we have to find a way to stop seeing people as kind of workers and start seeing people as citizens, and start seeing the kind of the conundrum that we're in is about the how to get out of that. Is about the empowerment of citizens. Is about how do we get people empowered and engaged in democracy again. And I mean, I think it's going to be a very, very sort of a very difficult task to do that. But I also think that it's a very, very difficult task for ruling elites in whatever shade they come. I mean, we've basically got politics now is basically a kind of sort of a right-wing beauty contest between ugly people. It's like it's the whole. The whole thing was a sort of pageant between two different kinds of elitism, but it's very, very difficult for them in the long run because we're coming to the end of capitalism as an economic force. It's like we're moving into a conceptualist society. The stuff that we're producing, now we're not producing physical goods. Now we're reliant on a consumerism that's kind of that's running down, it's shackled by debt. We're suffering from debt deflation, and we can't spend our way out of it because our tax base is so limited. So the social democratic kind of route is closing down as well. Automation is taking loads of jobs. We've got an elderly population to look after. We've got this massive demographic time bomb. We've got all these climatic kind of issues that are going to come, and they're going to cost money, and we're not. If we have kind of sort of rogue states that are just saying, well, the planet is there to be exploited, let's continue to rape it, then we'll have to address all these issues like kind of like floods and disasters and calamities, and that's going to be costly as well, and it's going to be costly to the human race in the long run because we're not going to survive. But in the short term, it's going to take a lot of money to kind of build massive. If you're building a wall in Mexico, what's the next thing you do? You build a massive dike all the way around Florida. So all these things have got to be taken into account, and it's going to be very, very hard for politicians of any shade to do anything. And the lesson is that as citizens, we can't rely on politicians. We can't have a rescue fantasy that this billionaire is going to save the day. It's all this kind of Batman type of nonsense about, and we have to stop being children. We have to empower ourselves. We have to educate ourselves, and we have to look at what kind of democracy we want to build and what kind of world we want to live in.
And turning to Trainspotting 2, which is released next year, are you surprised after all these years by the affection and the Trainspotting characters appear to be held after all this time? Even the violent psychopath character Begbie, who might be considered the perfect Trump supporter.
I mean, Begbie is it's a nice segue actually, because Begbie is a bit of a poster boy for the white rage that has swept the kind of the Western world. And I think it's funny when you look at the characters of Trainspotting, they've all had their ascendancy in a way. I mean, it's like Renton was originally seen as the main guy in Trainspotting. And then I think it went through a time where it was in that kind of very ruthless neoliberal era we moved into. It was very much when you said something and did something else. It was very much Sick Boys kind of moment. And now we're in the era of white rage. I think it's kind of Begbie's sort of place in the sun, unfortunately.